Hello, everybody, and welcome to Chapter 7, IISP, or Individualized Instruction Support Plans. I will be using PowerPoint as a guide, but I am hoping that I don't have to utilize it too much, and we can get right through this with as quickly as possible. All right. I'll do my screen sharing here. All right. Chapter 7, ISP and support plans. Imagine if we didn't have IISPs. What would providing care for the people we serve look like? Each person you support should have an IISP plan on how to accomplish goals. These goals can be personal goals. Most likely they have one or two uh, habitation goals. And then you support them with these goals in their plan. There is also the 7 domains, which we will get to in just a minute. Hopefully you've already read to better understand their IISP plans, their goals and needs and wants and dislikes and historical information. How easy is it for you to get acquainted with someone if you just read a few paragraphs about them? What questions do you typically ask when you get to know someone? How will you get to know the people you support? What if you ask a question of someone who doesn't speak your language? Would anyone in the room want to make plans for you and your life without really knowing who you are? The 7 key domains in the IISP, which is an annual plan that the Division of Developmental Disabilities Administration case manager will come out and complete with the individuals we serve at least annually. They will go over domains like home living, community living, lifelong learning, health and safety, social activities, employment activities, and protection and advocacy. There's also 2 exceptions. Exceptional behavioral supports. Sometimes people need extra support to be successful in the community due to challenges in their behavior. And also exceptional medical supports, which may include specific medical and healthcare support for a person who needs extra physical health care to live successfully in the community. So the PCP is a plan, it's a person-centered plan, and that's what they call it now rather than the IISP. PCP is a person-centered plan, and I believe they changed the name because we want to think about the person first. They meet with their case manager and care team annually, and you are a part of that team. Apply critically honest critique of last year's experience with the individual you support. Goals are reviewed and may need to be terminated or adjusted depending on wants and needs of the client to meet the goal for the next year. Or abilities. Abilities of clients change over time. And so it's important that we take that into account when we're supporting our clients. We really need to make sure that we're providing critically honest information. If someone goes from being ambulatory to falling down and breaking a bone or a hip, or something, they hit their head and they become a person who is not able to communicate clearly when before they were, or ambulatory and now they have to be assisted by a wheelchair. It's very important that we communicate those things to DDA and are very honest about it, because the support we get from DDA um, helps the individuals that we serve. And so if we're not giving them the information, they can't help the people that we serve with the level of care that they might now need. Nothing about me without me. Here is the URL for this video. And this is an amazing video about how we can team up with the people with whom we are working with and who we serve, for them to become as independent as possible. Our limits are only limits in our mind. We might have physical disabilities, we might have intellectual disabilities, but if you can dream it, it can happen. We just might have to figure out a creative way to make those things occur, to have things occur so people can live the life they want to live. So this is also the Make a Difference workshop, and you will watch this video, and this is a URL. And in this workshop, it talks about Seth. He is an individual who is supported by a, a company called Service Alternatives. And it shows how Seth and his staff um, help the community and help Seth to reach goals that people never thought he would be able to accomplish. And it's just a very uplifting, warm video, and it helps us to think outside the box. Think outside the box. So sometimes we have to really help people to learn new skills, and we really need to give them some very specific direction. So my son experiences autism on the spectrum. His name is Austin. And when he was little, he was about 5 when he was in kindergarten. His teacher came to me and told me that Austin plays with imaginary weapons at school, and that I needed to tell him that he couldn't do that anymore, or else he was not going to be allowed in school, because there's a no weapon tolerance policy in the schools. And so at first, I was really offended by this, because Austin does, in fact, have a disability. But then I thought, you know what? I can teach him how to not bring weapons at school, but I'm going to have to get creative. So his imaginary weapons, they were in his mind, and he would chop people's heads off and he would stab them with these imaginary weapons. And a lot of it was because he was watching TV program that did that a lot. It was the Power Rangers. I don't know if anybody knows about that. So the first thing I had to do was I had to tell Austin that he can only watch Power Rangers 1 day a week, and that would be on Saturdays. Because if he watched it on Saturdays, Sundays would give us enough time to reacclimate him to the idea that there were no weapons at school. Secondly, I had to come up with a very out of the box idea for him not to bring weapons at school, because telling him, nope, you can't bring your weapons to school isn't going to be good enough for him. He wasn't going to understand that. So, what I did was I created an imaginary bag, and I would take the bag and I would make the noise and I would go zzz, and I would open the bag and I would tell Austin every morning he must put his weapons in the bag before he went to school because weapons were not allowed. So he would go through this routine every morning, and I had to give him at least 15 minutes because it was necessary. It would take him that long to unleash all of his weapons, and he would pull them from his bag, the back of his back, and put them in the bag, and he would keep just pulling weapons from every part of his body. And it was comical, but I had to not laugh because it was very serious. He needed to go to school and get an education. When he was all done, I would tell him I'm going to zip up the bag and he can have his weapons when he gets home after school. But I would stop halfway and then I would open it back up and I would say, Austin, are we sure we have all those weapons? And he would look at me with this befuddled look on his face, like, oh, geez, mom, you're taking away my favorite toy. And he would start unloading more weapons into the bag and he'd make the noise and he'd put them all in there. And I'd be like, okay, is that it? And he'd say, yeah, that's it. And I'd shut the bag up and I'd take it and I'd imaginarily haul it to the closet and throw it in there. And I would do the noises, I would do the action. I did it all as if it were as real as Sunday morning. And after a couple of weeks, he learned not to take weapons to school. And we didn't have to do that, at least not that often. And every once in a while, he'd have to have reminders that he can't take weapons to school because something would happen at school and we'd have to give him reminders. But after that, after 2 or 3 weeks of that, um, he no longer needed those prompts at school and he could learn and not bother the other students or not disrupt class. Um, so, gave him full physical assistance. But then it came down to partial and then modeling, and I modeled it for him. And then after that, it just became indirect and independent because he could do it on his own for the majority of the time. So IISPs are a very important part of uh, the plan to support the people that we serve. It has their financial plan in it. It has their positive behavior support plan, of which we went over in the previous chapters and in chapter 4. And ISPs give us direction on what the people we're supporting want to achieve within that year. Now, my hope, the biggest takeaway out of this is if you don't document it didn't happen. We need to be documenting the things that we're doing to support the people in their lives to achieve these goals. And it could be so much as a phone call to a relative, to researching things up online, to going with them on the bus, to actually doing what the goal is. We need to show and demonstrate to DDA that we are supporting them with their life's ambitions. And that's the way I want you to think about these IISP goals and the ISP support is these are the people that we support, their life's ambitions. So we should be treating those ambitions like they are a pot of gold, because once they complete that goal, they can move on to the next pot of gold that they want to find. And so please do your best to support people with their wants and needs. And if they're not doing it, maybe we need to ask why. Why isn't this person who wants this goal and asked for it, why are we not able to complete it? What barriers are we finding that we need to have an out of the box idea for? Come together as a team, talk about it, talk to people in the office, administration. We have a lot of people with a lot of knowledge, and I've heard there's a lot of staff who've been with Evergreen for a long time. Look to them for some support, ask for some help. Um, and I will see you in the next chapter.